In this example, we're going to go through our entire process of creating and then examining a histogram. So we're starting out with our data table. We're going to go through and create a grouped frequency table. Based on that, we're going to draw a grouped frequency histogram, and then we're going to describe the shape of the histogram. So this data table represents the percent change in tuition at a sample of public four-year colleges from 2008 to 2013. We're going to create a frequency distribution and a histogram, and we're told that we want to use 8 classes. So, in this study, our individual is a public four-year college, and the variable is their percent change in tuition. Now, these numbers are percents, but in this context, we should just treat percent as a unit of measure, right? That is, so the value of our variable might be 19.5, and that's measured in percent. Because we're not actually taking a percent of something, we don't need to convert these percents to decimals. We'll just treat percent here the same way that we treated like dollars in the previous examples. It's just a unit of measure. So these are numbers that it makes sense to do math with, though. This is a quantitative or numeric variable. So it makes sense to do this process. Our next step is to calculate our groups. So we need to first find our class width. To find the class width, first we need to find our maximum and our minimum values. Our maximum, we need to find a big number. 51.5 looks pretty big. I'm going to go through and look for something bigger than 51.5. Ouch, 78.4. Okay, 78.4 is now my maximum. I'm looking for something bigger than 78.4. No, 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 no. And I don't find anything. My maximum value in this data table is 78.4. Next, I want to find my minimum value. The value 2.2 jumps out at me as being especially small. So I'm going through the list and I'm looking for something smaller than 2.2. .8, that's still bigger. Okay, I got lucky and grabbed the minimum on my first try. Our minimum value is 2.2. And then the number of classes we were asked for was 8. And so we're going to put that into the formula. Our class width is going to be 78.4 minus 2.2 all over 8. And when we throw that into the calculator, we'll need to put that subtraction in parentheses so the calculator knows to do subtraction first. So we'll take 78.4 minus 2.2 all divided by 8. We get 9.525. And then the values in our data set go to one decimal place, So we want to round this to 1 decimal place, and we want to round up. So we'll round this up to 9.6. Notice we rounded up even though that next digit was a 2. We will never, ever, ever round down when we're calculating the class width. We'll always round up. Again, we want our class width to be bigger than the result of that division. Okay. Next, we need to find our lower class boundary. And these have 1 decimal place in our data set. And so we'll subtract 0.05. So we want a 5 in 1 place beyond the data. We'll take our minimum value. We'll subtract 0.05. And that'll give us our lower class width of 2.15. All right. Next, we need to create our classes. And we're going to just do one table here. So we're going to create our classes, and then we're going to take our tally in the same table. We found our lower class boundary to be 2.15, and then we found our class width to be 9.6. And so on our calculator, we're going to say 2.15 plus 9.6. And our first upper class boundary is going to be 11.75. We're going to copy that as our second lower class boundary. And then on our calculator, we're going to add 9.6 again to get our second upper class boundary of 21.35. And then we're going to continue to do that. So copy down 21.35. On our calculator, we'll just hit enter to add again and get our third upper boundary of 30.95. Copy that down, hit enter on the calculator. Our next boundary is 40.55. Copy that down. Hit enter on the calculator, and we'll get 50.15 as our next boundary. Copy. Hit enter. 59.75 is our next boundary. Copy that down. Hit enter. We've got 69.35. Copy that last one down. Hit enter. And we'll get 78.95 for our last upper class boundary. And remember that our maximum was 78.4. 78.95 is only a little more than that. We seem to have gotten the right class boundaries. Okay, now we have our class boundaries. Next, we need to tally out and find the frequencies. Again, I've put a copy of the data table on screen. So looking at 19.5, that's between these two numbers. So I'll put a tally here. 51.5, that's between these two numbers. So I'll put a tally here. 13.1, that's between these two again. So I'll put a tally here. And at this point, you should pause the video and tally these out on your own paper, and then resume the video and make sure that you got the same results as I did. Okay, coming back, I got 6 values in the first class, 20 in the second, 11 in the third, 4 in the fourth, and then 2, 2, 3, and 2. So those are our frequencies. Finally, we want to make our frequency histogram and then look at its shape. Again, I've pasted in a copy of our frequency table with the tally part cut out so that we can refer to it as we make our histogram. So our labels on our horizontal axis are going to be 2.15, 11.75, 21.35, 30.95, 40.55, 50.15, 59.75, 69.35, and 78.95. Our first bar, we have frequency 6. And then all the way up to 20. And then 11. And 4. And then we've got a 2, a 2, a 3, and a 2. So there's our frequency histogram. And we're now also equipped to describe its shape. Looking at this graph, we see that we have most of the values piled up at this left end. And then we see a long tail going off to the right. And that long tail going off to the right tells us that this graph is right skewed. We don't have any bars with height 0. We don't have any classes that were empty. So this has no gaps. And the most frequent percent increase, this is the bar with the highest frequency. The most frequent percent increase was between 11.75 and 21.35. So that's how we would describe the shape of this graph. Skewed right with no gaps. The most frequent percent increase is in that second group.